Well, as you heard, he had produced more than 200 films in television, and he's including in Star Trek, Stargate, Twilight Zone, a number of them. And he's been recognized as a leading screenwriter, and he's won many awards. We're really happy to have him. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to turn the mic over to David.
Okay.
Why am I bringing up Akira Kurosawa? Because he inspired Star Wars. He made a film called The Hidden Fortress, which is about a samurai and a princess crossing a very dangerous piece of Japan during the Sengoku period, which was, they had a lot of civil war, and the emperor is trying to catch them, and they are with two absurd comical servants. Any ring a bell? The first outline, I have read the first outline of Star Wars that George Lucas wrote, and it follows Hidden Fortress almost beat for beat, the original structure of Hidden Fortress. So he started developing, and of course Lucas, just a little bit of background, you know, he'd done basically 2 features before this. Lucas, I've read a lot about him recently, is a very interesting guy. Interesting, kind of like the Chinese curse, may you living in interesting times. Interesting good, interesting bad, but basically he did not want to do stories about characters. He didn't want to do traditional characters and stories and people. He really didn't. If you've ever seen a film called THX 1138, anyone ever see his first film, THX 1138, which by the way started as a short that he did at UCLA. It was, or USC. It was a student short first, which I've seen, which is a good little short, that's a student short. He then turned it into a feature because Francis Ford Coppola was his mentor. They shot in San Francisco for pennies, $750,000. Beautifully realized world, no stories, very cold, distant characters. You know, it's a very cold world, not a consistent or logical or predictable narrative. That's the kind of stuff he really wanted to do. The film didn't do well. He said, okay, I'll do what you want. And he did American Graffiti. The reason I'm mentioning that was he co-wrote that movie with a couple, Willard Heck and Gloria Katz co-wrote that movie with him. And it was about his experiences in Mendocino County. Wonderful little movie if you've seen it, by the way. Wonderful little movie. Another $750,000 movie. This one made $50 million. So it did really well. Now he had the chance to do what he really wanted to do. And Star Wars, for you older people like me, was inspired very much by the cliffhanger serials of the 30s. Buck Rogers of the 25th century, Flash Gordon, thank you, Flash Gordon, which both starred Buster Crabbe. And if you watch them, I've seen them, they're really absurd and fun things. You know, the spaceships are on strings with smoke coming out of the end. And they're quite laughable, but very enjoyable. And he wanted to do that. The great idea was with modern technology. 2001 technology with real motion control. See, the big difference, the reason science fiction exploded in the 70s with Star Wars and other projects was the spaceships. Star Trek's spaceship, the reason Star Trek worked, the sets were cardboard, the costumes were velour, the phaser pistols were plastic, but those shots of that ship, whenever it went around a planet, still work. They still hold up to this day because they were motion control. The camera moved, but the ship, the model, did not. That's why it looked so natural, because it wasn't jumping around on a string. I was working in the 90s with Jerry Anderson on a show called Space Precinct. My wife called it Space Poop. And the models are still on strings, and it was laughable. But Lucas, and here was his genius, he said, look, if I can take this modern technology now, where the ships look really real, and do this Flash Gordon kind of material, this Western, space Western material that was never done properly, and do it really right, and I'll take the best filmmaker in the world's ideas from Hidden Fortress and other sources, not that he was stealing, he was a homage. I'm going to come up with something really interesting. And Hidden Fortress went through a bunch of rewrites. Excuse me, Star Wars went through a bunch of rewrites. He was struggling with the material. There's a man who ran Universal at that time. His name is Frank Rich. I will mention this only in passing. Frank Rich, after he dies, it will be on his tombstone, I turned down Star Wars. It was in development at Universal in the early 70s. And they were having a lot of trouble developing the project. It was also a science fiction spaceship thing, which no one was doing at that time. No one wanted to do that at that time, because no one had ever done it properly. Outside of a couple of things like Forbidden Planet, no one had ever done space stuff properly. And no one thought there was a market for it. And the story was going through a lot of permutations. So they couldn't get it to work. He fired it. He put it in turnaround. It then got to Fox. And here's where Willard Herrick and Gloria Katz came in. There were a variety of writers that helped Lucas along the way. They're not, writers of one sort or another. And they were the guys that really helped him crack the script of the movie that you saw, which has elements of THX 1138 in it, and elements of American Graffiti. I mean, we're going to see the clip shortly. For me, what sold the entire enterprise, the entire franchise, was that scene where that young man is standing outside of his uncle's house and looking up at those twin moons, Luke Skywalker, and yearning to get out of this boring place. Well, what human being has not experienced this at some point? I was in Dallas. My dad wanted me to run his flower shop. Trust me, those moons looked a lot better than my dad's flower shop. We've all had the flower shop. We've all had the uncle's air separator farm or whatever it was, right? The yearning to go on that journey and find, as young people, to find a new life, even if we still stayed in town. And this was Universal. It wasn't Universal, it was 20th Century Fox, but it was amazing how powerful this message was. So the script went into development. They got the script greenlit. Alan Ladd was involved, Alan Ladd Jr., if you know, his dad was a star in the 40s. They went to England. It was hell when they were shooting the movie in England. I'm going to show you a rough cut sequence to show you how awful it was. No one thought the movie was going to be anything. It looked terrible. It without the special effects sequences, without the relooping, without John Williams' majestic score. Imagine this movie without that score. It's like Jaws without the boom, 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 right? It post saved the movie, honestly. Performances aren't very good. The writing in places is very, very sloppy. But man, when they finally finished putting this movie together, it was wonderful. But Fox didn't believe in the movie. They thought it was the worst $8 million movie they'd ever made. And Lucas said to them, look, can I have the sequel rights back? I'll forego my directing fee if I can have the sequel rights back and the merchandising. He said, yeah, sure. Fox has been distributing these films ever since and does not own a damn thing on it. That's how little confidence they had in the project, right? So let's look at a couple of scenes. Now that is right out of Flash Gordon. This is right out of Flash Gordon. This is right out of Buck Rogers. Anyone here remember the cliffhangers, the serials from the 40s and 50s? Each episode, they'd have an episode. In the beginning, they'd have a credit roll, a crawl like this. At the end, they would have the credit crawl at the beginning of every episode after that, because the audience didn't know. Oh, sorry. The audience did not know what was going on, so they always had a crawl like this at the end of every episode, so they could get caught up with the rest of the story. The genius here with Lucas doing this was to put you in the middle of the action right away. And you feel like, oh my God, I've already missed something, but you didn't feel like, oh, I missed something and I'm confused, because the credit crawl is so brilliantly written, it really pulls you into the story right away in a very good way. This is pure 1940s, 1950s serial stuff. But no one remembered it in 1977. You guys still don't remember it. So it works fine. Let's keep going. Okay, let's stop there. Now, just a little bit of background here. They shot this at Pinewood Studios in England. All those people are English people, okay? England at that time when they were shooting this, you want to hear production stuff, right? You want to hear this stuff? Okay. All right, I won't go on too much about it. But it is important when it comes to showing how brave Lucas was. He had an English crew and they worked 9 to 5. And in the middle of a shot, they're shooting a scene, they walk off. They just leave. He didn't understand that. Their work ethic was very different from his, and the American work ethic. They didn't have any feeling or caring for what they were doing here. They were also very low budget. I mean, considering how ambitious the film was, they were shooting it in England and they were shooting it down there in Morocco, and they just really didn't have any money. You know, and they cut a lot of corners. If you see the New Hope version, that's really the version he wanted to release back then, but he couldn't for various reasons. There's only about 6 stormtroopers, and there's only about 6 of those rebels. And you see 5 or 6 of them shot. It's the same 5 or 6 guys walking by later. You know, they might. What they would do is to not make it so obvious is the stormtroopers and the her Princess Leia's guys would just switch outfits, and that way they'd have different faces. But they only had. They actually never had more than 10 or 12 stormtrooper outfits. They, you know, the shots where they're running down the hallway and they bash their heads on the top of the overhead. That's about as many guys as they had. I'm telling you, it's all an illusion when you're watching this stuff, and they get it. We all get away with murder with this stuff. I can tell you stories, shows. Star Trek, we got all these scripts with space battles. We got 100 submissions a month, 1,200 a year, and everyone would send us these elaborate scripts with space battles and planets and all this stuff. We had 2 swing sets. We never left the ship if we could help it. We'd go to Vasquez Rocks 2 days a year. We'd go to Griffith Park 2 days a year. And those were our planets. We had one standing set with caves we called Planet Hell. It's amazing what you can get away with. And I've got to show you too. Is the next clip the one with Prowse's real voice, Noe? Yeah. Let's show this. The genius of...
Finding the right voice for Darth Vader was another challenge.
And action!
Lucas had never intended to use the on-set vocal performance of David Prowse.
Start tearing this ship apart piece by piece until you find those tapes. Find the passengers of this vessel. I want them alive!
I can still hear David Prowse's accent in the Darth Vader mask, muffled, because he would do the real dialogue. He's trying to curse Carrie Fisher or something.
Send you.
I don't know what you're talking about. I'm a member of the Imperial Senate on a diplomatic...
You are part of the Rebel Alliance and a traitor. Take her away.
It was hilarious and terrifying at the same time, because we didn't know what Darth sounded like. That was the first time we heard him. We're like, is that it? Is it going to be some Scottish guy, or what is this?
Prowse's voice would later be replaced with a more menacing performance, provided by classically trained stage and film actor James Earl Jones.
George had hired David Prowse, but he said he wanted a so-called darker voice, and not in terms of ethnic, but in terms of timbre. And the rumor is that he thought of Orson Welles, and then probably thought that Orson might be too recognizable. So what he ends up is picking a voice that was born in Mississippi, raised in Michigan, and was a stutterer. And that happened to be my voice.
I want to know what happened to the plans they sent you.
I don't know what you're talking about. I'm a member of the Imperial Senate on a diplomatic mission to Alderaan.
You are part of the Rebel Alliance and a traitor. Take her away.
What would have happened if it had been David Prowse talking with a Scottish accent? This is how smart these people were, you know? I mean, it's all an illusion, guys. Yes. Oh, it's all an illusion, guys. Take her away. Sorry, I'm just getting too enthusiastic. I'm still stunned by all this. Is this the Twin Moons shot? Let's look at that. I fell in love with the movie at that scene. And of course, the opening scene, immediately you're pulled in, is so brilliant, right in the middle of the action, right? And the crawl, which you're not supposed to do, to just nakedly tell you what the story is, was just perfect for this new world kind of crazy science fiction western kind of thing. But that's what the heart of this thing is. The whole movie is about a young man going off on the greatest adventure of his life and becoming the perfect person he should be, and finding his true calling and his true direction in life. It's no accident, by the way, if you've ever read Joseph Campbell, that his aunt and uncle are murdered in the first act of the movie. The old world has to be destroyed for this young man to be truly free and go on to these adventures. One thing, it is kind of interesting, you'll notice how when they kill the Jawas, the stormtroopers kill the Jawas, and they also kill those guys in that corridor, and the other guys can't hit them. Isn't it amazing how it changes once our heroes, Han Solo, they get to the Death Star, they can't hit the side of a barn, and Han Solo can hit them easy. It's just kind of, that's very serial. In the serials, the heroes always hit the bad guys can never hit them. Well, let's go on. Let's go on to the next clip. That's a memorable scene, right? You all remember this scene, right? I'm going to tell you a couple of things that hopefully won't spoil it for you. Okay? By the way, have you ever seen a Robot Chicken parody of this? You know, which is just genius, where the guy, the walrus thing is not saying any of those things, and he's just trying to have a drink. And then he gets his arm cut off and he can't be a graphic designer anymore. It's terrible. The only part of that scene that they shot in England with the original crew was the wide shots, the wide shot of the bar, and a couple of close-ups, a few close-ups. Wherever there's not a creature with an elaborate makeup, that was not shot in England. The crew did not give Lucas anything worth looking at. It was just really, you know, bad masks and just some weird makeup, like the guy with the weird teeth, and that was about it. It wasn't much of anything. And Lucas was very dissatisfied, so he moves to Mendocino County. He goes back to Mendocino County, where Ben Burt, his great sound designer, did the ray gun shots by hitting the guy wire of a power tower to get boing, boing. That's where he got those shots, right? And other stuff. All the great stuff you saw, they shot in a warehouse. 6-7 months later, the Cantina guys, because there was no music in the scene. There's no music in that scene. They added that with the Cantina. And all the other creatures, the weird looking creatures, They shot those all, added all those later. Gave you it was the most wonderful at that moment. That was the greatest single image of seeing aliens together in a single location in an alien world ever filmed in any movie of that time. All these convincing aliens. And they were all added later in a warehouse. MOS means without sound. The first German director said, "We will do this without sound." And it went into the language, MOS, without sound. It was all silent stuff they shot. They added the music, they added the sound effects. This is the joy of good filmmaking. This is what a great filmmaker Lucas was at this time. Next clip.
Solo! Solo! Come out of there, Solo! Solo!
Right here, Jabba. Been waiting for you.
Have you not?
You didn't think I was gonna run, did you?
Ah, my boy, there are times you disappoint me. Why haven't you paid me? And why did you have to fry poor Greedo like that, after all we've been through together?
Look, Jabba, next time you want to talk to me, come see me yourself. Don't send one of these twerps.
Han, understand. I just can't afford to make exceptions. Where would I be if every pilot who smuggled for me dropped this consignment at the first sign of an Imperial starship? It's not good business.
Look, Jabba, even I get boarded sometimes.
You think I had a choice?
But I got a nice, easy charter now. I'll pay you back, plus a little extra. I just need a little more time.
Han, my boy, I'm only doing this because you're the best and because I need you. So for an extra 20%, I'll give you...
Jabba, don't push it.
For an extra 15%, I'll give you a little extra time. But this is it. If you disappoint me again, I'll put a price in your head so big, you won't be able to go near a civilized system for the rest of your life.
Jabba, you're a wonderful human being.
And here's, of course, what ended up in the movie. Next clip. They added Boba Fett. Boba Fett wasn't there, or Boba Fett, right? Again, that scene. They didn't have the scene in the original film. That was the original scene. It didn't work very well. You notice that he walked over his tail. That was to hide the fact that it didn't quite work with him going. So they made him complain about stepping on his tail as he crossed behind him. Really brilliant stuff. All right, now before we see the dynamite scene. The scene that probably sold the movie to audiences more than anything else, which is, of course, the attack on the Death Star, this final attack on the Death Star, which, by the way, is brilliantly edited. Notice how everyone always reacts on a look. The cuts are all on reactions on looks. They look like this, they hear something, they look like... It's perfectly cut together, brilliantly edited. Any of you ever see a movie called Dam Busters? In fact, the last Dam Buster just died. The Dam Busters, it was a true incident in World War II when the British Air Force with Lancaster bombers dropped these special round barrel-shaped bombs which had to bounce across the water to hit dams on the Ruhr in just the right angle to destroy the dams. And they had to fly down through these narrow valleys filled with anti-aircraft guns to get to the dams. There were like 12 bombers involved and only 3 of them came back, but they destroyed 2 dams which flooded big parts of the Ruhr and did great harm to the German war effort. They made a film of this. Before they shot this sequence, they looked at that film over and over again and they copied the shots. He's going down through this valley, right? That is the Ruhr. That's a river in Dam Busters leading to a dam which is going to over the Ruhr Valley. So Why am I telling you this? There is no such thing as a totally original idea, but there is original conceptualizing. There's original reinterpretation. He was very much influenced by all these great movies and ideas and filmmakers, and he pulled them together. He made them into something completely his own and completely original. Show the scene. Okay. By the way, did you hear the lion roars in the bad guy ships? Those are lion roars that they put in there, you know? Darth Vader's joining us on stage. Yay. Let's jump ahead. We've only got a few minutes left. And I'll be frank, okay. First three films, Lucas had co-writers, Lucas had a story, Lucas had characters, he had Luke Skywalker. In the next three films, his own producers did not know what he had or understood what he was doing. If you've seen these three films, I have high hopes for the new Star Wars movie. I know that at the very least it will have a screenplay and characters. The last three films, it's very questionable that they had screenplays and characters. I'm sure they were watchable and enjoyable films to a degree because there was so much visually going on. It would certainly keep even my dog distracted, and he hates TV. But terrible writing, terrible characters, not very, awful acting. I mean, God, Hayden Christensen, I mean, he jumped in one movie, Looper, and that's been it, or Loop or Jump or whatever he did since. Lucas, it must not be forgotten, he had some very good co-writers and co-directors in those first three films. I will tell you one quick story about Willard Heck and Gloria Katz, the two people who helped him put together the first movie. They again came to him with their dream project, and to his credit, Lucas felt he owed them. He said, whatever you want to do, I will give you the money, I will give you the distributor and the studio to make any movie. I will help you get it made. And he got $35 million for them through Universal Pictures to make their dream project. Do you know what it was? Howard the Duck. Be careful what you wish for. So, the important thing I'm talking about here is look at what was planted in those first movie. That first movie was so brilliantly put together. Written, directed, produced, edited, co-produced, whatever. Don't fight with Darth Vader. The war is over. Hopefully, that material, because they're going to bring back several key characters. They're bringing back Han Solo. They're bringing back Princess Leia. they're bringing back these characters, and hopefully they'll. I have hopes, and J.J. Abrams, like he says, he can't do worse. He's going to do better. Let's hope, guys. There's a new hope. Okay. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you very much, David Bennett Carren.
Thank you, Darth Vader. Oh, remember Kurosawa? Why do you think he's got a Japanese lord's helmet? That's pure Kurosawa. You ever seen the commercial with the little kid? Have you ever seen the robot chicken? There's a robot chicken where they're all sitting around the table and saying, okay, Darth's going to come in. Now pretend that he can choke you with his hand. And then we'll put a beard on you and send you to another part of the ship.